History often gets flattened into cartoons. When most people think of the Middle Ages, they picture mud, superstition, and peasants stumbling through 1,000 years of darkness. We call it the Dark Ages, as if civilization hit pause between the fall of Rome and the rise of the Renaissance. But what if that picture is completely wrong? What if buried under that lazy caricature is a different story? One of breathtaking ingenuity. Because here's the truth. Medieval engineers, monks, scholars, and builders weren't stumbling around in ignorance. They were solving problems that still stump us today. They created technologies so advanced, so durable, and so elegantly designed that even with modern materials and computers, we often can't improve on them. Think about that. In an age without electricity, without steel factories, without satellites, they engineered solutions that worked so well, we still use them. Or worse, we tried to replace them with modern fixes that ended up less efficient, less durable, and far less elegant. So in today's journey, we're peeling back the myth of a dark age and revealing 10 medieval inventions so far ahead of their time, we still can't beat them. But before we dive in, I want you to pause and drop a comment right now. Tell me where in the world you're watching from. I love seeing how far these medieval secrets travel in today's world. Maybe farther than they ever did back then. Ready? Let's start with the invention that literally fed civilization itself. For thousands of years, humanity scratched at the earth with wooden sticks and simple plows. But those tools only worked in light, sandy soils. When medieval Europe's population began expanding into the north, they hit a problem. The soils there were clay-heavy, wet, and nearly impossible to farm. Enter the heavy plow, an agricultural revolution in iron and wood. This was no simple stick dragged through dirt. It was a three-part machine of genius. The coulter, a vertical blade, sliced the soil like a knife. Behind it, the plowshare cut horizontally beneath the surface. Then came the mold board, a curved wooden blade so perfectly angled that it flipped the heavy clods of earth completely over, burying weeds and exposing rich, moist soil to air. The result? Fertile land that had been useless for centuries suddenly became Europe's breadbasket. Forests were cleared, marshlands were drained, grain surpluses skyrocketed, fueling the rise of cities, universities, and even cathedrals. Without the heavy plow, there is no medieval boom, no Renaissance, no Europe as we know it. And here's the kicker. Modern tractors still use the exact same three-part system. We've added horsepower and hydraulics, but the fundamental design remains unchanged. Because you can't beat perfect. The heavy plow wasn't just a farming tool, it was the foundation of European civilization. Picture this. You're a monk in 1280, hunched over a manuscript, copying line after line by candlelight. Your eyesight begins to blur. In any other century, your career would be over. Then, around 1285 in Italy, someone invents the first eyeglasses. 2 carefully ground lenses mounted in a frame. Simple? Maybe. Revolutionary? Absolutely. For the first time in human history, age no longer meant the end of intellectual work. Monks could keep reading, scribes could keep copying, scholars could keep studying long after their eyes began to fail. The ripple effects were enormous. Before glasses, literacy was mostly a young person's skill. With glasses, older generations could stay active, productive, and influential. Imagine the impact. An entire society where the wisdom of age no longer went dark at 40. Within a century, eyeglasses spread across Europe. By the Renaissance, they had helped create something the world had never seen before, an aging population that could still read, write, and innovate. And here's the modern shocker. Today, 2.5 billion people wear glasses. That's 1 in 3 humans walking around with medieval technology strapped to their faces. Contacts, lasers, apps, none of them have truly replaced the simple brilliance of 2 curved lenses. The Renaissance didn't just happen because people became curious. It happened because they could still read. Sustainability feels like a modern buzzword. But medieval farmers cracked the code centuries ago with the three-field system. Here's the problem. Farming the same field over and over drains the soil. The Romans had a solution: the two-field system. Plant one field, leave one fallow. Better than nothing, but wasteful. Medieval farmers improved it with breathtaking simplicity. Divide the land into three. Plant one with winter crops like wheat or rye, plant the second with spring crops like oats or barley, leave the third to rest, then rotate each year. The results were immediate. Food production jumped by 50%, but more importantly, the rotation naturally restored nutrients and broke pest cycles. No chemicals, no fertilizers, just wisdom. This system powered population booms, fed armies, and fueled city growth. It was sustainable agriculture perfected 800 years ago, and ironically, we're relearning it today. Crop rotation, nitrogen fixing, soil conservation, all the buzzwords of regenerative farming are really just medieval knowledge repackaged. Industrial farming ignored this wisdom, chasing short-term gains with monocultures and chemicals. The result? Soil depletion and environmental destruction. Maybe it's time we admit medieval peasants had it right. Wind is chaos. It changes direction constantly, dies without warning, then roars back with destructive force. For most of history, harnessing it seemed impossible. Then, around the 12th century, medieval engineers created the post-windmill. Instead of fixing the sails in one direction, they mounted the entire millhouse on a single massive vertical post. The whole structure could rotate 360 degrees to face the wind. Workers literally pushed it around until the sails caught the breeze. Inside, wooden gears and shafts transferred the rotation to heavy millstones, grinding grain. The engineering was delicate but robust, able to withstand enormous forces. Here's the unbelievable part. Some of these mills ran for over 600 years with only basic maintenance. Compare that to modern wind turbines, which last 20 to 25 years and require specialized materials and computer tracking systems. The medieval post-windmill was renewable energy technology that was actually renewable. Built from local wood and maintained by local craftsmen, it powered villages for centuries without steel, plastics, or rare earth metals. We call our age the Green Revolution, but maybe the medievals had the greener solution all along. Before compasses, sailing across open seas was gambling with death. Clouds covered the stars, landmarks disappeared, and ships vanished. Around 1200, Europe adopted the magnetic compass, and the world changed forever. The basic principle is simple. A magnetized needle aligns with Earth's magnetic field. But medieval craftsmen refined it with brilliance. They balanced the needle perfectly on a pin, sealed it in oil-filled glass to steady it in storms, and mounted it on charts for practical use. With a compass, sailors could finally cross oceans with confidence. It didn't just open trade, it opened the entire globe. The age of discovery, for better or worse, was impossible without this device. And here's what makes it unbeatable. Unlike GPS, a compass never runs out of power, never crashes, never gets jammed. As long as Earth has a magnetic field, the compass works. Every ship, every hiker, every pilot still carries one today. Medieval technology that remains indispensable in the digital age. Forget Hollywood catapults with twisted ropes. Those were unreliable toys. The real monster of medieval siege warfare was the Counterweight Trebuchet. Instead of tension, it used gravity. A massive lever arm, a hinged counterweight filled with stones, and a sling that whipped projectiles with terrifying force. The genius lay in the details. The hinged weight allowed a smooth, efficient drop. The sling multiplied speed like a whip. Engineers could adjust the weight or the sling length to fine-tune range and accuracy. The result? Stones hurled a quarter-mile with enough force to pulverize castle walls. The Warwolf, Edward I's legendary trebuchet, was so intimidating that defenders tried to surrender just seeing it built. Why is it still unbeaten? Because for pure efficiency, the trebuchet is perfection. It harnesses a free, unlimited fuel, gravity. We didn't surpass it. We replaced it with a new paradigm, gunpowder. But in terms of elegance and efficiency, the trebuchet remains unmatched. For centuries, architecture had one iron law. The taller your building, the thicker your walls. That meant fortresses, dark interiors, and limits on height. Then Gothic architects invented the flying buttress. Instead of making walls carry the crushing weight of stone roofs, they externalized the support. Arched stone arms caught the lateral thrust of the roof and transferred it outward into heavy piers anchored in the ground. Suddenly, walls didn't need to be thick. They could be thin, filled with vast stained glass windows. Cathedrals like Chartres and Notre Dame soared, bathed in colored light. And here's the brilliance. The pinnacles topping the buttresses weren't just decoration. Their weight actually stabilized the entire system. Medieval engineers turned physics into art. Modern skyscrapers use steel skeletons, but the principle is identical. Externalize the load. The Gothic cathedral solved it centuries ago with stone and intuition. Imagine holding the universe in your hand. That's what the Astrolabe offered. Perfected in the medieval Islamic world and embraced in Europe, it was a brass disc engraved with rotating star maps. With it, you could measure a star's altitude and instantly calculate time, latitude, or even the height of a mountain. It was, in essence, an analog computer. Sailors carried simplified versions to cross oceans. Scholars used them to track celestial events. For a millennium, it was humanity's most advanced portable device. Why can't we beat it? Because it never needed batteries, updates, or satellites. It physically embodied spherical trigonometry in brass, a tool so elegant that every modern stargazing app on your phone is its direct descendant. The Astrolabe wasn't just an instrument, it was proof that mathematics and craftsmanship could merge into magic. Before clocks, time was natural. Sunrise, sunset, seasons. But medieval monks needed precise hours for prayer day and night. The solution was the mechanical clock, born around 1270. It used falling weights as power, but the true genius was the escapement, a mechanism that caught and released energy in steady beats. Tick-tock, time broken into measurable units. This invention changed civilization. Bells began ringing across towns, synchronizing communities. Workdays, markets, armies, all began running on mechanical time. It wasn't just about accuracy. It was about redefining time itself. Time became something external, standardized, and measurable. Without this shift, the Industrial Revolution, with its factories, schedules, and global coordination, could never have happened. We've built atomic clocks now, but the medieval clock was the real revolution. It invented modern time. Finally, the masterpiece of medieval genius, the Gothic rose window. Imagine cutting a 40-foot hole in a load-bearing stone wall, then filling it with thousands of pieces of colored glass and fragile stone tracery, and expecting it to last 800 years. That's exactly what medieval architects did. The rose window is geometry made visible. Every curve, every rib of stone perfectly calculated to channel stresses outward. The tracery isn't just decoration, it's mathematics holding up tons of glass. And the glass itself? Modern chemists still struggle to reproduce its purity and brilliance. The cobalt blues of Chartres remain unmatched. These weren't just windows, they were cosmic screens, transforming raw sunlight into storytelling and spirituality. The light that pours through them is not just illumination, it's transcendence. And here's the ultimate proof of their perfection. When Notre Dame burned in 2019, its wooden roof collapsed, but the rose windows survived. 8 centuries of storms, wars, revolutions, and fire, and they're still there, flawless. In an age obsessed with LED screens, the rose window reminds us The most advanced screen ever made was crafted from sand, fire, and stone, and we still can't beat it. From the heavy plow that made Europe fertile to eyeglasses that extended human intellect, from sustainable three-field farming to windmills that lasted centuries, from compasses that guided ships to trebuchets that unleashed pure physics, from cathedrals that soared on flying buttresses to astrolabes that placed the universe in your hand, from clocks that created modern time to rose windows that turned light into poetry. The Middle Ages were anything but dark. They were an age of relentless problem-solving, of ingenuity born from necessity, of brilliance that still shapes us today. So the next time you hear someone dismiss the medieval era as primitive, remember this: we haven't beaten them. We're still standing on their shoulders. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these inventions blew your mind the most? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this journey, hit that like button, share it with someone who still thinks the Dark Ages were dark, and don't forget to subscribe, because there's so much more history that deserves to be rediscovered. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and never underestimate the genius of the past.